Why do people work? This is a question that I've been asking myself for a long time. Maybe some of you have never considered it before, but why do people go to this thing called work? What is this? What is even work, right? Does the 9 to 5er have the same work as the cashier, as the NBA player, as the entrepreneur, as, Elon Musk who's trying to put a man on Mars? All of us go to work, but what are we actually doing? And sometimes I felt like just like a blind sort of rat, just like on this like rat race, doing what society perceives as work, yet questioning behind the scenes of what the hell am I actually doing? What am I doing all of this for? Okay. And so I finally arrived at some pretty strong conclusions, and today I'm going to share them. Um, we got to start with what is work? Like, what the hell is work? Okay. And the thing is, people call all sorts of things work, right? They call, working on their business, that's work. They call going to their waiter, waitress job work. The NBA player goes to work as well, right? The president of the United States goes to work. But we're all fundamentally doing very, very, very different things. So for the sake of this conversation, I'll just call work any activity that's done with some sort of monetary exchange, right? If you get paid for any sort of activity, then we'll just call it work, even though there's many other ways of defining this, right? So with that definition in mind, we can now start sort of differentiating between, what are people's different types of work and what are they really doing? Right? When the cashier goes to his job in the morning, is he doing the same thing as what Elon Musk does when he goes to his office in the morning? I don't know. Right? So the way I sort of explain this to myself is what I call the material to spiritual scale. Okay, let's imagine on this side we have the material side of things, humans' material needs, right? A roof over your head, food, shelter, right? The basic stuff. And then you have your spiritual needs, which are, fulfillment, growth, service, your purpose, your calling, these kind of things, right? And the way you want to look at it is that you can only fulfill your spiritual needs when your material needs have been fulfilled, right? These are sort of the baseline needs. And as these get further and further met, more and more your spiritual needs become a priority, okay? And so if you think about the way that people talk about work, you can kind of understand where on this scale they're operating from. For example, people will talk on the material side about like just making a living or working to live or work-life balance, or they're just like, hey, I'm just doing this job, it makes good money, right? It's just just for the paycheck, right? That's somebody operating on the far end of just the material scale. On the other side, there's the spiritual scale, which is where people are doing it something for art, for sport, for their purpose, for their calling, for fun, to express themselves, right? This is things that we usually associate with like, musicians or athletes or artists. But, even a lot of entrepreneurs, right? They're building art with what they're doing. They're helping people. They are, creating something that didn't exist before. They're creating technology that didn't exist before, right? This is on this side of the spiritual scale. And so it gets really confusing because, everybody can look like they're doing the same thing, but they're really not, right? Especially if you're actually doing sort of the same thing. Like, let's say an entrepreneur, building a coaching company. One could just be doing it for the money, right? Just to make a living for their family, become financially free, whatever it is. Another one could be doing it because that's their life's calling, their life's purpose. That's something that they feel like speaks to their soul, that they were born to do, right? The first guy's on the material side and the second guy is on the spiritual side, very much so. And that's why a lot of people wouldn't understand, like, it's like, maybe somebody wants to work 70 hours a week and somebody else would be like, why would you do that? Right? You already have enough money. Why would you work 70 hours a week? Why would you kill yourself over that? Well, that person might be doing it for spiritual reasons, as in this is their soul's journey, this is their calling, this is what they want to put out on the earth. I mean, granted, there are people for sure slaving themselves out there for the sake of ego, status, comparison, to feel good about themselves or to fill a hole inside of themselves. That's something else entirely. Um, but a lot of people out there are certainly working very hard, including like F1 drivers, NBA athletes. These people we don't really question when they put in 70-hour weeks because that's what their job entails, right? But we question when a normal sort of employee or entrepreneur, works super hard. So yeah, and at the end of the day, I believe it can be a combination of both. It's not just material or spiritual. It's like you're somewhere on the spectrum, right? For me, for example, right? Like obviously, I still need material needs met. It's not like I have enough money for my family to live on for the rest of my life, even though I'll get there one day. But I also have chosen to align my work, my money generating activities, with something that feels spiritually fulfilling, with coaching, doing a coaching business that lights me up, that feels like it comes from my soul, right? Um, and I do it for the money, and I do it for the art, the sport, right? The fun, the calling, right? It's a combination of both. And the more closer I get to the point where I don't really need money anymore. Let's say I have passive income that covers my family's needs for the rest of my life. I can do anything. I can do any art. I can do anything. I may choose to continue my coaching business. I may choose to start another business that feels more like my calling. I may choose to just fucking paint all day long or go skiing or play basketball, because at that point doing business is the same thing as any of those things. They're just things that make me naturally want to express myself, things that come out of me as in like, this is what my soul desires to do on this planet. And it may be business, because for a lot of people it is, right? For a lot of people, business started out as something to meet their material needs, but then as their material needs got met, they realized that this vehicle of business actually fulfills many, many, many of their spiritual needs better than any random hobbies such as, boxing or skiing or something. And so they continue to choose to grow in that direction, right? So, you know, so that's what I believe is work, and that's the scale of work, that I believe work exists on. And at the end of the day, we all need our material needs met first, and then we can meet our spiritual needs. If we just try to meet our spiritual needs without meeting our material needs, that's when you become the starving artist who has no food to eat, but has big dreams and ideas and great music in his soul. Unfortunately, that doesn't work, or at least from what I've seen. So I think that's a wrap. That's why people work, what is work, and what I personally define as work for myself at this point in my life.